Yeah, Elaina, do you want to tell us what we're
so today I'm going to make bung tut nung, which is basically, it's like rice noodles, and it's like served cold with like nuk mam, which is basically like this. It's like a mixture of like fish sauce, like lime juice, water, and sugar. That's like kind of the like staple, I think, in a lot of like Vietnamese foods. Like my parents just have a jar of that in their fridge. So normally it's done with like pork, I would say, like, or like in terms of meat and like over the barbecue. But I feel like since I like moved out of my parents' house, I never really have a barbecue. So I normally just do kind of chicken and like over the stovetop. I'll get started, which is I'm just making like a marinade basically for the chicken, and then going to cook it. Shallots, garlic, lemongrass, some sugar, some oil, some soy sauce, and some fish sauce as well.
Yeah. And Elaina, why did you choose this dish?
I chose it because, so growing up, like my dad was the one who did like most of the cooking, and I feel like this is just like a dish that like reminds me of like summer, because I think he's very into like barbecuing. And so like, it's just like, I feel like when it's summer, I feel like this is a dish that I crave, because it's like really like cold and like bright and like herbaceous. And I also think it's just like, I don't know, I think I was thinking a lot about like, what I feel like I felt like a lot of like pressure of like, what is like Vietnamese food, and how do I like represent it, and what would be a good representation of like what that like means for me specifically too. And I think a lot of it is like, I think a lot of like the components, so like in it as well, like in addition to nuk mam, there's also like do chua, which is like the like pickled carrots and like daikon. And I think that's like, you know, in a lot of like Vietnamese food, just like in terms of like in banh mi and other things like that. So it just like feels very like fresh and bright. And I think the other thing is like growing up, like, and still now, my dad is like very into gardening. So like it's like, even though like today I like bought all of the herbs from the store, it's like I honestly, for some of them I didn't even know the names of them, because it was like I just like know what they look like. Because it was just like, these are just like in the garden, and you kind of and like my dad also grows cucumbers and things like that, which is also another part of the dish. So it just like, to me, feels like very summery as a dish, and just like meaningful in that way. But I also think it's like interesting, because I don't know, I feel like I went down like an interesting rabbit hole as I was like thinking about like Vietnamese food, because like obviously it's like very influenced by like French colonialism, and then also like just like different eras of like Chinese occupation as well. And so I was trying to think about like, I guess the like interesting ways that like Vietnamese food is like really like involved in relation to that, because like obviously I think a lot of people think about Vietnamese food and think about like pho, but apparently that was like not actually like that's very much I think a thing. But then also like has now like a major part of food culture, and even I think like the French brought like carrots and things like that. So it's like interesting to kind of see how it evolves. There's like a Vietnamese like pastry called like pâté chaud, like bun pâté chaud, which, you know, pâté chaud, like in like it's very French name. So I just think like that was like really interesting to think about when I was like thinking about this dish, and like all of the, because I think like a lot of the components have like are dated to like a lot of different eras in terms of like, I think nuk mam, which is like the sort of fish sauce that is like quintessential to like a lot of Vietnamese food, is actually like really old. I think in like terms of like, we're talking like first or second like CE, like super old, because I think of like the histories of like fishing in the area, and how that was like a really sort of staple part of like Vietnamese cuisine for a long time, and like preserving the fish in salt, and then like how it sort of ferments. So I think like a lot of those things were like interesting to sort of think about in relation to this dish. Like, I think the other reason I wanted to make this was like nuk mam, which is like the kind of dressing sauce that goes on top of it. I feel like it was like one of like the first things that like my mom taught me how to make, and in the way of I think a lot of cooking, it was like very much like, here's this bowl, fill it up to this level with water, and do like this particular metal spoonful of sugar, and do all this stuff that was like very like imprecise in terms of the actual measurements, but always kind of ends up the same when my mom does it.
Lemongrass, 2 tablespoons.
So and the other thing, the lemongrass is, I like cheat and I get the frozen cut up lemongrass, because I don't have time.
I didn't even know that existed.
And it's also much cheaper than actually just buying the lemongrass, which is another tip from my mom, because she does all the grocery shopping. You can just like find it in the freezer aisle, and then you don't actually have to like cut it and do all the things.
How much?
2 tablespoons.
Okay.
Should I talk about all the herbs?
Yes.
Sure.
Please.
Okay. So there's lots of different herbs. So basically, like, I think when you put the noodle dish together, you'll like compile it with the sort of dressing, the sort of pickled pickled carrots and daikon, and then put some cucumber, and then you have all of these different herbs, which like there's like Thai basil, there's cilantro, there's like perilla leaves. This is actually, I got this by mistake because I was like, this looks like the thing,
seen it.
but it's not actually the thing. This is like culantro apparently. Which apparently is, but that's not what I wanted to get. I wanted to get like it's kind of like a sour herb, but this is fine as well. Like it's all just like different variations of herbs in it. So we're just gonna go on.
Beautiful.
Let's do that again.
Add some more.
Thank you.
Great.
Great.
Thanks, Elaina. Looks great.